When you look at graffiti, what do you see? Hooligans? Vandals? Criminals? Beneath this misconception of street art exists a pulse, a story that begs to be told. A simple exploration of street art in Colombia unearthed the hidden society, culture, and narrative behind Colombian graffiti. This dynamic form of expression has been referred to as a universal language. It's everywhere. It exhibits the messages of history, environmental justice, indigenous rights, corruption, feminism and equality, politics, drug abuse, and infinitely more social problems. Our group contributed to the beautification of cities from street art by painting a mural at Café Madrid in Bucaramanga, painting side by side local students and professors. In our exploration, we learned of the boastful, tight community of street artists and what they do to transform cities like Bogotá, such as pushing addicts out of back alleys, beautifying parks and public places, and influencing lawmaking and public opinion. Come with us on a visual journey to experience this hidden story of Colombian society.
When you think of graffiti, you usually think of tags, gang members' scribbled names marking their territory. The negative connotation of graffiti still lingers, but recently, with fewer punishments for artists, namely no prison time and a max fine of $100 in major cities, artists feel more empowered to make elaborate works of art in the streets of Bogotá. Punishment for graffiti has lessened in part due to the issue of police brutality against artists, such as the murder and police cover-up of 16-year-old David Felipe Becerra in 2012, while he was painting his signature Felix the Cat. Since then, Bogotá decriminalized street art, and artists do not have to pay fines if they have permission from the owner of the building. Some of the street art in the city is done with permission from the owners to beautify their buildings, but many are still painted as an act of rebellion and without permission. Even with this more rebellious approach, more and more people are falling in love with street art and its sometimes deeper meaning. I noticed this piece of art on the first day while driving through the city. I thought that it was about Colombia's rich biodiversity, but the parrots actually represent cocaine addicts, and the planes above them represent the international drug trade. Many of the other works had a striking deeper meaning, from the political to the environmental to human rights. What we and others thought about graffiti is changing, and street art is being recognized as a legitimate form of art, and spaces are opening up for artists.
Street art to me is about building bridges and burning bridges. A close examination of the street art in northern Colombia will reveal attitudes about the relationships between rich and poor, indigenous rights, and the struggle to restrain aggressive capitalism.
Colombia is the second most biodiverse place on the planet behind Brazil, with a wide variety of lush plants and animals, including a variety of endemic and endangered species. Some artists tend to paint things that reflect what's going on within the environment and nature in Colombia. Artists are using the urban environment to raise awareness to environmental issues that are under threat outside of the bustling cities. Taking into consideration the three-dimensional space in architecture or using multiple buildings can be a prime example of environmental street art. Colombia is number one with bird and amphibious species, with about 2,000 different kinds of birds, which is almost equivalent to 20% of the bird species that exist around the world, and poisonous frogs on the west coast of Colombia near the Pacific Ocean, and the most orchids found than anywhere else in the world. These pieces of art are cultural agents of history, expressing natural heritage through a flood of vivid colors and geometric shapes, featuring jaguars, insects, fish, monkeys, exotic birds, plants, flowers, and other wildlife along the walls of the cities.
In what is still a male-dominated world, female street artists face adversity when it comes to making a voice for themselves through their art. Some artists do not announce their feminine identity, feeling that being a woman should not change the perception of their creations. Needless to say, our ideas of femininity in relation to the making of art need to be re-examined. Does being a woman artist require her to only produce soft paintings of butterflies and flowers? Or can she make loud, defiant statements in regard to the environment, addiction, and women's rights? Bastarilla, for example, is more than proving her worth with thought-provoking work that focuses on feminism, poverty, indigenous society, and the aftermath of violence. Many are vividly displayed and aimed at bringing bright colors to the less fortunate streets and lower-income neighborhoods of Bogotá and abroad. Bastarilla takes a traditional item that women are typically seen using in the kitchen. She then takes it apart and creates her own tool, a paintbrush, to help her tell her stories. It helps to send a very powerful message out into this misogynistic world that women should be recognized for their ability to produce raw and gritty street art that gives a feminine perspective to the cultural and political environment in which we live.